All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next installment of Interviews with Experts. At Tally, we like to connect with leading thinkers and experts from around the world and across a whole bunch of different industries to find out what the latest trends are in all things people, AI, tech, and HR. And today I'm joined by Peter Zukow, who's the managing partner of IQ Partners over in Canada. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you having me.
No problem at all. So you're doing some really interesting things, obviously, in the people space and as one of the leading executive search and recruitment firms over in Canada. So I'm excited to have you here today to hear what you're seeing as the latest trends. And I think that's sort of where we'll start today and jump straight into it. So what are the, I guess in the AI world that we're living in and the crazy times that are going on in every country, what are the kind of main themes and trends that you're sort of seeing coming from your clients and from the work that you're doing today?
Well, Peter, I think where I would start is that, having been in the industry for over 30 years, I've gone through many evolutions and changes in the business and economic cycles. What we're seeing over the last couple of years is probably one of the most complex and confusing marketplaces for talent that we've ever seen. And it's because there's so many different influences that are impacting it. We've got, global economic and socioeconomic impacts that are happening. We've got, obviously technology and AI that are influencing. We've also got a Canadian talent market that is by nature a little bit more timid. There's a term that we've heard called job hugging, where people are really staying closer to their current employers for fear of making change. So you've got all these dynamics that are really impacting the marketplace in a unique way. Global organizations, CEOs, leaders of businesses are quite frankly a bit fearful to make big swings and big decisions. They want to see what's going to happen. They're trying to look out 6, 9, 12 months and don't necessarily have that confidence and security. So all of those things are just really making it difficult for people to make big decisions, and then when they do, to attract the right talent, make them move.
Yeah, it's complicated. And there are trends that we're seeing everywhere, like in every country around the world. It's sort of, there's obviously a lot of economic uncertainty happening and a lot of, strange things happening in the world just generally, but there's a real lack of confidence that is kind of limiting or slowing down a lot of decision making, which is interesting. Did you call it job hugging? Is that what you called
Job hugging. Yeah, it's where
job
people are
hugging?
holding their existing jobs tightly.
I love
So
that.
right now, if you think about the typically markets usually fall into being an employer market or employee market based on
Mhm.
what's happening in the trends in the economy. But right now, technically, one would say that it should be an employer's market because there's a scarcity of really good jobs, and there has been a huge trend in hiring. So they should have
Mhm.
the advantage in terms of supply and demand. And yet the candidate pool is also being equally timid and staying a little bit more cautious about making change. So that's kind of created a bit of a stalemate.
Yeah, right. And so that's kind of strange when you think about it. It kind of breaks all of the laws of economics, but
It does.
but it's true. The way you're describing it is exactly how we're seeing it from a whole bunch of people. So what are some companies doing then to sort of, I guess, to break out of that? Because the leading ones or the ones that are going to be more innovative or more successful in these kind of times of change are the ones that kind of find a way through it and keep operating. Like what are the things that you're seeing that some companies are doing that are making them sort of lead the pack a little bit more?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, certainly the companies that we work with and advise, and the ones that we're seeing it doing well, are really spending time on their employer brand. They're really making a compelling value proposition to potential future hires around why would want to come and work for that organization, demonstrating career path, growth, opportunity, all those things that would be compelling for an individual to move. And then I also think they're being opportunistic. They're looking at great talent and trying to find ways to attract them, even though there may not be that perfect job for them. They're seeing that longer term horizon and attracting the best people.
And do you have any examples of how people might be doing that? Like, what are some of the more clever things that people are doing to attract those?
Well, I think staying in the market. I mean, even when you don't have necessarily a specific vacancy, but you're looking at succession planning, you're looking at longer term, you on your horizon, staying active in the market and being proactive in conversations will give you an advantage. If you've already engaged and started in conversations and are visible in the market as a organization that's growing and doing things differently, that will by nature attract great talent.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's my background before playing in HR was in consumer brands for a long time, and it was always you had to try to fight the business to explain why you needed to spend money on branding and story and presence and all of those things that are hard to put ROI on specifically, but then when it comes time to say, hey, can you buy something from us now? They're like, oh, I've heard of you before and I'm interested in, I
Yeah.
appreciate the work that you've been doing. And it's the same thing with employer brands, isn't it? You have to be present and show that you're actually committing to the market. And if you're not, people forget about you really quickly. So it's hard to sort of come out and say, now's the time for you to pay attention to us if you haven't sort of been doing that groundwork for a long time. So those truths sort of still remain. I know across your organization as well, you're sort of taking more of a holistic people approach, I suppose, and a sort of a total talent approach as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that sort of, and how that's kind of changing, I guess, how maybe search is moving from more transactional to a more holistic?
Well, we've seen that trend for a while, and certainly our organization has taken a proactive leap in that direction. We look at ourselves as consultants and advisors to the clients we work and partner with. So, it really starts with really understanding what their talent strategy is before it's about placing an individual person in a role. We are fortunate enough to be part of a much broader ecosystem called the Humanis Advisory Group, and within that, we've got a number of different organizations we partner with that go beyond just pure executive search and recruitment, the organizations that provide coaching and leadership support, as well as fractional HR services. So we can come to that organization and not just be a one-trick pony. We can come and really support them across a variety of different potential needs that they have.
The total talent thing though, what's the benefit to clients? Like what are the things that people are coming to you and saying like we need more of this, or these are the changes that we're seeing, and like how's it sort of helping to address something that's a problem right now?
Well, I think again, it's about looking at the big picture as opposed to an individual, I'll
Yeah.
call it position on an org chart. It's about really understanding what does the future state look like, 6, 12, 9 months from now? What do we want our business to look like? And really determining, do we have the right people in the business? Do we have people that could be the right people that need to be developed and moved through development programs? Do we have something happening in the business right now that is an event, a moment in time where we might need to bring some support in on a fractional or a part-time basis to help us get over a hump? So it's less about, having a one size fits all solution. It's really about identifying what the problem is or what the opportunity is and layering in the support services that align with those.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you find that clients are kind of receptive to that concept as well? Because I know that often, their talent teams or their internal teams, or even like, we're saying at the start that there's a lot of uncertainty about like what even the future direction looks like right now. And they're probably keeping some of those cards close to their chest as well. Like how are you finding people are receptive to that kind of concept?
Yeah, I mean, I think it like anything, there's going to be people who are I'll call it early adopters, or people who are kind of all in on something, and others that are a little bit more resistant, and a whole swath of people in between. I think that part of it is we don't come in with this massive mindset that we have to bring everything all at once. It's about, hey, what's the immediate need? What's the immediate problem? Once we can get in there and start solving for that, now how can we take that and look bigger and beyond? So it's not about coming in and doing this massive consulting project, but more about just looking at what are the needs in the business today, and then what could those needs or challenges look like 6 12 months out that we could support them with.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting.
Like the Swiss Army knife of talent. We could bring the right tool at the right time.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I was reading some research this morning talking about how like there are so many factors impacting on decision making right now when it comes to any sort of business decision. And even we were saying earlier about the lack of confidence and sort of how it's slowing down decision making, and it's really extending out those buying cycles as well. And even talking about like how like the cost of living issues that people are having at home are then feeding into their decision making at work as well. And it's kind of links back to the job hugging thing that you're talking about. But, if all of a sudden, people are thinking they need to cut back on going out for dinner or going to the movies or going to see shows, and there's something like 80% of people now are cutting back on just day-to-day expenses. All of that's kind of feeding into this mindset of austerity a little bit and just like trying to cut back. And even, we know that leaders are suffering from burnout, engagement's the lowest it's ever been. There's like mental health issues happening. Everyone's just busy, everyone's frantic. And so then you're sort of operating in an environment where there's also a lot of change happening, and people are like, what's this AI thing and how's it going to change my role? And will I have a role in a few years from now? And like, it's interesting when you sort of step back and don't think about, which is kind of what you're talking about. It's not really about, hey, we've got an open role, we need to fill this place. It's like, hey, in this ecosystem, in this operating environment, in this company, in this country, all of those sort of factors come together to create so much need for just pausing and looking at the big picture and thinking about it more strategically.
Our team met yesterday and we were talking about a number of things. And one of the topics that you can imagine we deal with a lot is organizations, sort of workflow and set up for whether it's hybrid or in office or some combination of remote. With a lot of companies now moving back to bringing people into the office, it's really interesting to see, because we were talking about the evolution of remote work, where that's people have really taken advantage of it, and certainly in many ways appreciated that ability to reduce their commute times and work from home. But one of the unintended consequences is that freedom has also come with a new burden. There isn't that separation from work and life that there was before. We talked about how when you would commute, you had when you drove into work in the morning, you had that, okay, I'm getting into work mindset, and you arrived in the office, and then when you left work, even if you did work at night or whatever, it was different. You had a little bit of that decompression. You left it behind. People that are working from home all the time, your work life never really leaves you. It's kind of with you and
Mm.
present around you. So I think that creates a huge amount of stress on individuals. So as much as, the idea of working back in an office is challenging for some, and seems, there is also some implications of having that stress of separating work and life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it is good though, because I can be talking to you now with a shirt on top and shorts down the bottom, and no one knows. So it's fun.
Absolutely.
It's a whole new
Absolutely.
world we live in. It's great. In Victoria,
Absolutely.
here in Australia, they've actually just made it a law that you have the right to have 2 days at home to work, no matter what. Well, obviously, if you work in a hospital or something like that, you have to turn up to work. So it's now a legal requirement that companies have to give that right to
Interesting.
people. So it's interesting how it's changing, and then you go across different jurisdictions and different roles, and yeah, it gets more complicated. One thing that we're hearing from a lot of people is that with AI sort of changing the landscape a lot of the knowledge and skills that used to be the kind of basic requirements for certain roles has shifted a little bit. You don't need to be an expert in Excel anymore. You can just get Claude to do the Excel work for you or whatever it might be. And so there's more focus on the human aspects and the personal side of things, like the personality traits and behaviors and those things coming through. Are you seeing that in the work that you're doing as well? Like more of a focus on the type of person and their leadership style and those kind of characteristics?
Yeah, I think that we're still, although AI has come a long way in a very short period of time, and has obviously impacted all of our worlds significantly, we're
Mm,
still early days. There is a huge opportunity for it to support organizations' growth and productivity. And what I'm hearing and seeing is that it should be less around eliminating roles and getting rid of jobs and people, but more about elevating what type of work that people are doing. So by eliminating some of the, I'll call it menial or redundant type of administrative activities, it frees that individual up to be doing more productive and strategic work around that activity. So it's around supporting and reviewing the information that AI puts out, as opposed to spending the extra hour or two doing the actual work. So I think it's an interesting time, and it will continue to evolve. But I do think that organizations have started to realize pretty quickly that AI can't replace people. It now is a function of trying to figure out how to leverage it. I also think we're in still early days of AI governance. A lot of organizations haven't put in place governance policies yet, and that's
mm.
going to be an important factor. They're going to want to ensure that they're not exposed to potential, litigation or issues that may come up with AI producing work that isn't exactly accurate, that wasn't vetted by humans.
Yeah, there's been a lot of examples of that coming out in the media from some big consultancies that should know better. It's
Exactly.
definitely a
Exactly.
whole thing. Yeah, it's kind of I find it really interesting though, because there's this conversation about how there's a lot of the day to day maybe automated, and so people can step up into more strategic thinking kind of roles. But like one thing that we know about people is that there's all sorts of people in workplaces, and some people just don't want to do that. Some people actually kind of like doing they work in payroll, and they like to turn up and they process payroll every day, and then they go home to their family at night, and that's kind of the type of work that they like to do.
Hmm.
I reckon there's like a flip side of this where we talk a lot about and obviously we're all talking about trends in HR and
Yeah.
consultancy and all sorts of things all the time, but we're like, this is really exciting. Everyone's going to be able to take more strategic roles. And I feel like there's a flip side where a lot of people don't Like some people don't want to do strategic roles. We're maybe missing the truth of, if you're 58, you've been doing a certain role for 30 years, you're heading towards retirement, you're like, I don't want to be retrained. I don't want to do a new job. I'm quite happy with what I was doing for a while. So there's like a human side that I think is being missed in some of the opportunity conversation. But that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I think there's still opportunity for people to grow in roles, and maybe grow is a better word than kind of become more strategic. But you could take that payroll person who's used to doing it, and maybe it's fun for them to do it in a different way that creates different outcomes and more efficiencies, or even a new way of doing things, and that gets them excited because they've got a technology that allows them to do it. You could say that the person that did payroll before that didn't have an automated system or even an Excel spreadsheet would have said, well, I just like doing it on my abacus and paper. And then when they got the
That's
spreadsheet,
true.
they thought, wow, this is great. So I think it
Yeah.
can still evolve without, being completely, altered.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. It's about getting the message right for the person so they sort of see the opportunity rather than seeing it as a fearful thing that's
Yeah.
going to upset them. Yeah. And so how are you is any of that sort of feeding into your practice in terms of like thinking about like looking for different characteristics or traits in people or seeing whether people are going to be more open to these new opportunities or driving new thinking, or is it still just like just broadly understanding people and sort of seeing those fundamentals play out?
I think we've always looked for, personality and how that aligns with an organizational culture as well as the expectations of role and role responsibilities. I think what's evolving is just how we're assessing those things. We've got more tools and more data available to actually look deeper into both the individual but also the organization and the hiring manager, because it's a two-way street. It's not just about that individual's alignment. It's about the companies and the hiring manager's alignment to that individual. So it's got to be complementary.
Yeah. And so how are you starting to weave sort of the tally assessments in how you're approaching that?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I think as I told you from when the first time we met, we historically have been, I would say, assessment agnostic. We've used many different tools over the years. Sometimes because it's a new tool that we want to try and bring into market. Other times it's because it's a tool of choice for a client that we're working with. So we're always looking to innovate and find the best outcome. The things that we've appreciated thus far with Tally is, the ease of administration, and by that both for the person taking the assessment, for the individuals on our team that are coordinating the assessment, as well as for the individual client that might be receiving the information on the back end. So that, ease of facilitation is important for everybody, but also the output is really strong. But I think more importantly than anything else is that the data is very easily consumed, and from there, individuals are able to use it and leverage it to go beyond just making a decision in the moment around a hiring decision. They're able to use it in a way for ongoing coaching and development. So it kind of has more of a life to it, where it's not just used in a moment and then put in the bottom drawer and gathering dust and never used again.
Yeah, amazing. That's really good to hear. And that's obviously what it's about. I was thinking about this the other day, like how many assessments, like personality profiles must have been done in the past and like how many PDF reports have been printed that have sat in drawers and never looked at again. There must be millions of them just floating around the world of all these sad little profiles saying, look at me, I can be helpful for you. Just do something.
Yeah, and
Basically.
I mean always within any environment, it's a personality profile, is one data point among so many other pieces that you're using in terms of evaluating a person's
Yeah.
performance or fit to a job. You're going to look at their past history, their education, their performance in previous roles, their personality fit with the manager, all of those things. But it's nice to have those things, and the more insight you have, the better the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. One last question for you. What is there one thing that's like your pet peeve when you hear from a client with an open role? Like one thing that you see people do all the time, you go, that's not how you do it. Like a little nugget that's gonna actually make recruitment work better and you just sort of see people do things that sort of drive you crazy over and over again. Is there one thing
Oh,
that
you don't
comes to
have enough
mind?
time for that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's really understanding the market dynamics. I mean, you can, as
Mm,
a company or a hiring manager, you could have a vision of exactly what you want, what that perfect, unicorn candidate looks like to join the team. And yet, if it doesn't exist in the marketplace, where you need to look at it from a slightly different perspective, whether it's the past experiences, I think you just need to be adaptable and open to what the market has. Most often, the individual that is coming to you not just from the current role they're in, the title of the position and the company they're with, but they're bringing a collection of experiences that includes their entire career, their education, their background, all those different roles that were experienced throughout their career journey. And so it's that totality of the individual that you want to evaluate, not just the current role and title that they're in right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, sort of getting out of your bubble and sort of sitting in a room and describing your dream unicorn, like you just described, and just saying, actually, this is a real human that we need to find somewhere out in the market, and getting out of that little bubble. Yeah.
People can get to the same place from a bunch of different journeys. Someone can start out in finance and end up in sales. Someone can start in HR and end up in some other type of leadership role, cross-functional role. So it's great to have that diversity of experience.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to actually get people to sort of shake out of the little bubble that they're living in, isn't it? And say, this is what you need to be paying attention to, but it's tricky.
There are certain industries that are quite unique, but oftentimes people think that their company or their organization is completely different than every other. And the reality is usually it's not that case.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, well, that's a good point to end it on. So, Peter Zukow, managing partner from IQ Partners, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today and to share your thoughts on all things search and people.
Thanks, Peter.
Good.
Appreciate it.